So good afternoon. Thank you to Mickey Ibarra and to the Latino Leaders Network for this great recognition. I remember when I first met Mickey. Alex and I had just started dating, and one day he asked me if I would accompany him to a work dinner. He said, "Don't worry, it's gonna be very low-key, no stress, very casual." I said, "Okay, that sounds great." So when we arrived, we walked into a beautiful restaurant in downtown LA, and we walked into a small room, and sitting right in front of me was the illustrious Mickey Ibarra. And to the right of me was Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, and in the room, there were other prominent Latino leaders. And in true Mickey fashion, he asked everyone to go around the room and introduce themselves and share why they were there. And so when it was my turn, I stood up nervously, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, I am never going out with this guy again. But here we are, almost 14 years later, receiving this award together. We do indeed make a great team. Alex supports me as much as I support him. As parents of 3 beautiful boys that give us a lot of grief, as most Mexican children do, it's true, teamwork makes the dream work. And as a good friend recently told me, yes, somebody has to go out and try to help save the world, but somebody has to stay back and help save the house. And so that's me, and I'm very proud and honored to do so. As a Latina, I'm honored to have this spotlight today. You see, years after that dinner, I realized the importance of what Mickey was doing. He was bringing leaders together. Mickey is the great uniter. He shines the light on Latinos who are working to make a difference. He knows because he walked that path himself, and it's his way of leading others toward their great purpose. It's truly beautiful, and we need more people like him. Now being one of the few Latino families in the United States Senate, it's abundantly clear to us that we need to keep shining the light on other families walking the same path. Alex and I quickly realized that there is no playbook for families like ours in the Senate. We were not groomed to reach these heights. Unlike other Senate families, we don't have unlimited resources. And it's not a given that as a family, we will succeed. The good news is that Alex and I do not have a lack of ganas. We know why we're there and how important it is to represent. As a mental health advocate, I want to thank the Latino Leaders Network for recognizing the importance of mental health. And I'm thankful to Maritza and Marisela and the Twins PR for helping me advance our mission at Fundamental Change. When I established Fundamental Change in 2017, I knew how important it was to share why we needed to do more to support ourselves and others in our mental health journeys. Having witnessed my mom's incredible challenges over the year, and then her recovery, because we found the right recipe of treatment, support, and medication. I always thought it was important to share the hope and possibilities with others. But I never thought that we would be embarking on one of the greatest mental health crises our nation has ever faced, the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of the pandemic, more people now recognize the importance of getting proper mental health treatment. As someone who studied psychology, I can tell you that people have been using therapy as a tool to become the best versions of themselves for many, many years. And while many societies and cultures openly participate in therapy without any stigma, for Latinos, that isn't necessarily the case, and it puts us at a great disadvantage. There is so much stigma in our community because unfortunately we've been told along the way the untruth that we should feel ashamed if we need mental health support. That's just false, especially for executives and people who work in high-stress work environments. It's important that we learn how to channel our energies and our emotions in a healthy way. In your swag bags, there's a beaded bracelet courtesy of Fundamental Change. And its purpose is if you find yourself, going to a meeting or an interview or something you know is going to be high stress, you put your bracelet on and you start counting your beads. And it's really going to relax you and help you reroute your thoughts and help you get focused. In closing, I want to challenge each and every one of you. If you don't already have a good therapist, emphasis on good, find one. Even if you think you don't need them now, have their number handy for if and when you do. And please allow yourselves to be vulnerable. It will become your superpower, and your brain will thank you for it. Thank you. Have a great day.
And before we present Senator Padilla for remarks, we'd like your attention for a brief video, please.
As I embark on this journey, I'm honored and humbled. I think about how 2 immigrants from Mexico, a short-order cook and a housekeeper who worked hard, struggled, and sacrificed to raise a family, would see their son grow from the Northeast San Fernando Valley to the halls of Congress. I think about my family, my wife Angela, and our 3 boys. They mean everything to me.
¡Se puede!
And I think about the 40 million Californians, too many struggling or devastated by the COVID-19 pandemic, parents struggling to put food on the table, and far too many anxious and uncertain about what the future holds. I raise my right hand, I take my oath, and I commit to working, just like my parents did for me, to make sure every Californian has a fair shot to achieve their American dream.
Congratulations.
Now please welcome the Honorable Alex Padilla for remarks.
I want to thank Miki Ibarra for making sure that we did not pause for lunch so that I can have a little extra time before we hit that 2 o'clock mark to say what I got to say. Good afternoon, everybody. Feels like a homecoming. Thank you all for being here. A lot of thank yous, starting with my brother, Congressman Tony Cardenas, for his kind and, if you couldn't tell, heartfelt remarks and introduction. I want to thank my friend Miki Ibarra for bringing us together. The Latino Leaders Network, your entire team, for gathering us and organizing this event. To my friend, our Lieutenant Governor today. Anybody need a commission appointment, a board they're interested in? Now's the time. Now's the time. For me, it is absolutely special to be here in Sacramento, not just receiving, but sharing this award, because Sacramento is our state capital. It's also where the Latino Legislative Caucus is celebrating its 50th anniversary. 50 years of making progress. The state capitol is also where I served for 8 years in the state Senate, for 6 years as Secretary of State, before becoming the first Latino to represent California in the United States Senate. Hold on, you didn't let me finish. First, appointed by Governor Newsom, and last November, elected by the people of California. And so as I look around the room, I see many friends, many colleagues, many leaders and champions of the Latino community who have gathered here today. And I, on behalf of both Angela and myself, just tell you how much it means that you are here as we accept this Eagle Leadership Award together. Now, in 2017, I was honored with the Eagle Leadership Award as Secretary of State. And at Mickey's request, as he does with all the honorees, he asked that I share the story of my upbringing and why I pursued public service. And I did. I shared that with the crowd gathered in San Antonio, Texas, at the luncheon that day. And look, my story is one that many, many, many of you already know. There's a couple of new friends here, but a lot that we've been on this journey together for many, many years. Yes, I'm a proud son of immigrants from Mexico. My father worked as a short order cook. My mom used to clean houses. I grew up in the working class community of Pacoima, California, a couple blocks from our congressman here and a couple of blocks from Assemblymember Luz Rivas, with dreams of playing professional baseball. Odds are hard. I used to like math, and that somehow did well in science, and that explains the engineering degree from MIT. But it was Proposition 187 in 1994 that got me to quickly put that engineering career behind me when I was shocked into the realization that I had no choice but to get involved with government and politics. If I want to do my part in defending our community, defending the American dream, and influencing the trajectory of our state. But today, I've actually chosen to share stories from a different chapter in my life, making stories that are equally defining of who I am, of the leadership I try to provide, and of the spirit of the Eagle Leadership Award. Now, the first story, this may come as a shocker from what we've heard already today. The first story is the story of my first date with Angela. Tony and Norma, they've already, taken the glory and the credit for making the introduction. So after that bowling night, I asked Angela out to dinner, and a couple of weeks ago, we went out for sushi. And as I vividly recall, before I could even get an order in, I began to listen to Angela share stories about what it was like growing up as daughter, caretaker, and advocate to a single mom with a mental illness, specifically bipolar 1 with schizoaffective disorder. I learned about battles with doctors and hospitals and the healthcare system. I learned about the struggles of too few resources and services that are available. And this was 20, 30 years ago. We're talking about the need for more investment in mental health. Now, imagine the experience of people decades ago. And I learned the stories of her family, her uncles and aunts coming together to support Tita, my mother-in-law. So by the time the check came, I thought I was being a gentleman, lending an ear. And I thanked Angela for trusting me and confiding in me to share what I thought was pretty sensitive for her family. And I assured her that I knew how to be discreet. And she replied to me with, "No, you idiot. I'm not telling you so that you keep it to yourself. You're in a position to do something about it. And it's only by talking more about mental health that we raise awareness, improve understanding, and overcome stigma that stands in the way." So do you see why I fell in love so quickly? I was immediately enlisted into Angela's mental health advocacy army. And now all of you are too. I pulled out of the swag bag. When you go through your swag bag, you'll find this little pouch. These are the beads that Angela referenced. Feel free to wear them or pass it along to somebody who may need them or may not know need them. The second story I'm going to share is from 2012. A few months after our wedding, Mickey, this is going to sound familiar. A few months after our wedding, we were flying to Orlando, Florida, to attend the annual NALEO conference, where I was going to become president of NALEO for the first year. And must have been somewhere, I don't know, over Oklahoma, Arkansas, somewhere. I'm on the plane going through the materials in preparation for the board meeting where I'd become president, and I came across one of the documents that gave the mission and the history of NALEO. Many of you are familiar with NALEO, right? It's the mission is to ensure that Latinos are represented in every facet of our democracy, founded by the late Congressman Ed Roy Ball many, many years ago. And I thought, well, this is a great synopsis. Instead of me having to try to explain NALEO, honey, read these 2 pages because I'm about to become the president. So she read it, and she says to me, honey, this is a big deal. So what's a big deal? She says, well, NALEO, you're about to become the president. And I said, well, you know what that means for you? She paused there. Well, what does it mean? What does it mean? I said, you're about to become the first lady of NALEO. It was a little bit of a joke, but I shared that story with Arturo Vargas after I became president of NALEO, and Arturo actually took it seriously. And he said, well, you know, we've never had a first lady or a first gentleman of NALEO. If Angela's interested in having some sort of formal role, let's think about what it could be. And so if any of you have attended a NALEO conference in the last 10 years, you now know how the Community Service Project was born. That was Angela's idea and Angela's role because of her incredible vision and her incredible heart. Now, I share these stories with you because I love her and because I could not serve in the Senate without her love and support. She makes me a better person. She makes me a better leader. But I also share this because I recall Angela's challenge from that very first date to not keep sensitive or uncomfortable experiences or perspectives to myself, but to share them as a way of educating others, tackling problems, and arriving at solutions. Now, many of you have asked what it's been like for me for a little bit more than 2 years now, serving in the United States Senate. And as I've reflected on the question over and over again, I keep coming back to this. I mean, among the biggest opportunities and responsibilities that come with serving in the Senate is sharing stories, Mickey. Our stories, our perspectives as the Senate and Congress as a whole discusses and debates the biggest policy issues for our country and the planet. And as the Latino Leaders Network has us gathered here today to celebrate leadership, I think it's important that we're mindful that it's not just important to recognize the issues that we fight so hard for, whether it's tackling climate change or access to health care, improving education, voting rights, equality, and more. I think leadership to be celebrated, and I'm reminded of this every day when I think of Angela and our boys, is rooted in the values that drive us in those fights. Ethics, integrity, respect, inclusion, valuing diversity, and humanity. And so take that all in. And I'd like to think that in my first 2 years, I've lived up to those values. When we negotiated the American Rescue Plan earlier in the pandemic, working to ensure an equitable distribution of resources to combat COVID-19. It was a new way of thinking. When we negotiated the Infrastructure and Jobs Act or the Inflation Reduction Act, we wanted to make sure that we prioritized, not left behind, but prioritized low-income communities and communities of color who are too often on the front lines of the devastating impacts of climate change. A new way of thinking. And I've been aggressive, not shy, I've been aggressive about nominating and helping confirm federal judges, the most diverse group of federal judges and cabinet members in history, including several from California. We've worked to reduce student loan debt by providing direct resources to college students, a lot of Latino college students in California, as well as supporting Hispanic-serving institutions and more. I can go on and on and on with a litany of impacts I'd like to think that I've made by serving in the Senate. Those of us in public service know that every time we celebrate an accomplishment, we're also quick to say, but there's still so much more work to do. And there is. From gun safety, to improving mental health, to modernizing our immigration system. And only because I have a couple minutes to make it, I'm going to insert one more story here. Wasn't planning to, but I'm going to, because I think it's a good one. We talk about how we're impacting Congress and the outcomes of Congress, and it is a people business. Sometimes it's tough enough convincing other Democrats to do what you think is right. Imagine reaching across the aisle trying to convince Republicans, especially on this intractable challenge of immigration. And so when I first got to the Senate, I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee, whether it's informal committee, in these bipartisan roundtable, can we find a middle ground here and get something done, unsuccessful, despite our efforts. So there I go, knocking on Republican senator doors one at a time, and behind closed doors, let's get to know each other. Let's talk about this. What's doable in your mind? And frustrated as all hell at being told, look, Alex, I'm with you. I'm for Dreamers. But Biden, the border, fentanyl, blah, blah, blah. No, don't get me wrong. Farm workers, I get it. But Biden and the border and fentanyl and blah, blah, blah. Like they say all the right things, but they can't get themselves to separate a family or an individual coming to our southern border seeking asylum from someone who has been here 10, 20 years or more, working, paying taxes, contributing to the success of our nation, and working on the front lines during the COVID-19 pandemic. We ought to be able to do right by them while we figure out the other challenges. And there was this day when I was sitting with one of my Republican colleagues, who shall remain nameless, when he says, Alex, look, I'm getting to know you, and I hear good things about you, so I don't want you to get me wrong. We are pro-immigrant in my state. It's a pretty red state. And I get it. I see immigrants that are in my state, and they work in factories, and they raise their kids, and their kids do well in school, and they're so proud of their kids when they graduate high school. Some go on to college. Some become teachers or firefighters, or sometimes even work in the plant and become managers and supervisors. And we're very proud of that. And so I kind of took a deep breath, and I kind of leaned in. And I said, you know what else they're capable of? One of them can one day serve as a United States Senator. And you should have heard the gasp. I wasn't sure if it was him or his staff or both. But I think he got my point. I think I might have changed a mind or a heart that day. Still working on the vote. Still working on a few more votes. But little by little, we keep chipping away. And I just want you to know that's not just the mindset but the heart that I'm bringing to the job. And I'm not naive about how hard all these things are, right? None of us sought positions of leadership because it's easy to make change. I mean, think about Congress. Congress was designed to be inefficient. Congressman Cardenas can give you example after example. In the Senate, even worse, we have this filibuster that we have to overcome to make progress and make change. But I also know that every single leader in this room and the Latino leaders that have come before us, nobody has pursued these positions because we thought it was going to be easy. We do it because we know it's important. It is important. It is hard, but it is possible to make progress. Yes, sí se puede. And we must continue to make progress by bringing leaders together and continuing to work together.
On behalf of the Latino Leaders Network, it's my honor to present Alex and Angela Padilla with our Eagle Leadership Award for their outstanding leadership in the state of California, in Los Angeles, and across our great nation. Thank you.